welcome you to this WORAN event. Some of you will have been to WORAN Lightning Talks before, and some of you won't. WORAN is, of course, Women in OR and Analytics Network. And we try and hold events roughly monthly for most of the year and be present at the main OR Society conferences. And the agenda for today, once I've finished doing my introduction, we have a set of 5-minute talks from Kari, Xiaochen, Ruth, Shraddha, Jasbir, and Dilek. And they will each have 5 minutes, and I will call them to a halt after 5 minutes if they haven't already reached a halt by themselves. And that should give us 1 to 2 minutes for questions for each person. If you've got any questions, that would be lovely if you do, because it's always nice to get a bit of feedback. But we don't have long for questions, so it might only be 1 question per person. We will put a link to a feedback form in the chat as well and ask you for feedback. So that would be really helpful. If you have to leave early, we'll put the link in early, and it'd be helpful if you could fill that in and finish by 2:30. So that's what we've got. Everybody is in this for the enjoyment of it. So I think it'll be really interesting for the audience and quite intense for the audience. The audience has a lot of work to do because they've got a lot of people to focus on, a lot of different topics to switch between very quickly. So it's not easy being in the audience for these things. And I call on you to summon all your powers of concentration and inspiration and support, because if it's not easy being in the audience, it's even harder to be one of the speakers, because to collapse something that you're really interested in into 5 minutes is not easy, and I'm really grateful to all of our speakers for having a go at it. If any of you watch this and decide you'd like to have a go next time, then please do. Just a little bit about WORAN. We have the events, and they are meant to give us a chance to meet each other online only, to network, to learn about each other and to learn about what's going on, so that we don't feel isolated in our workplaces sometimes, especially if we're in a male-dominated workplace. We might feel a bit isolated, but generally it's simply interesting. So welcome to people of all genders who've joined us. It's just interesting to see what people are doing. And the idea is to support each other and to enjoy ourselves doing it. We have 2 events coming up. One is actually not a WORAN event, but it involves a lot of people from the WORAN network, including Nuncia. Her surname's gone, but many of us will know Nuncia, who was one of the founding members of the Women in OR and Analytics Network, who, together with Paula Carroll from University of Dublin, Trinity University, where is it? From Dublin anyway, has written for one of the 75th anniversary issues of the Journal of the OR Society a research paper on gender equality, opportunities and challenges, which also has a lot of commentaries associated with it. So it's a discussion document as well. And actually, I'm one of the people who wrote one of the comments, but you will see a lot of familiar names there. And that's going to be a really interesting presentation. And then on the 20th of June, we have a significant WORAN event where 4 leading personalities in the field of OR, including Gilbert Owusu, who's our president, will be comparing experiences of what has helped them in propelling them forward in their career and what have been the barriers in their career. And that's one of the things that's really significant, because part of the reason we're here as WORAN is to help address in particular the barriers for women in OR. But there are also some propellers, and there are also all sorts of interesting intersectional issues around what it is that moves people forward or holds them back. So that's what we've got coming up. We will also be at the OR Society conference. We will be at the New to OR conference. So do watch out for us. I'm going to stop my share now. And this is the moment where we see all of you. I can see all of you now on the screen. As I said, it would be nice if you can take your show your video, but actually for the talks themselves, I think Karen is going to be pinning the speaker, so we won't see that. And we are due to start with Kari. So Kari, if you want to be putting up your slides, and I'll do a bit of introduction. Kari may be known to quite a few of you. She is an independent data consultant at Hypatia Analytics. She founded it fact, founded Hypatia Analytics, where she focuses on UK healthcare and life sciences, but she's also doing a lot around the community generally, the maths community in particular, and women in maths as well. So her aim is to enable business transformation through impactful and actionable insights, but she doesn't just do it for free. So that's what she's going to talk to you about from now. So Carrie, are you ready?
Can you hear me?
Yes, can hear you.
Yeah. Cool.
Okay.
I'm ready. Yeah.
Okay, in that case, I will set the timer going now. Off you go. Thank you.
Hi, everyone. So my name is Carrie. Like Bruce said, I'm a mathematician and I work in UK for more than 10 years now. So after 10 years, I take a leap of faith. I work and set up a company called Hypatia. So the main reason for doing that is because I want to spend more time doing charity work. So you can see a little chart on my career and timing. So I'm an NHS seller and analyst, and then I work in a consultancy company and pharmaceutical company in-house first before I set up my company. And then now I normally spend about 60% of my time doing corporate work. So basically anyone that will employ me, I will do something about it. And then I am doing some charity work. So today I'm talking about how being a woman in the society can help each other, and also how I'm using my company to help the community. So that is the beginning. And then one of the stuff that I'm really proud of is, so I'm using Hypatia to work with different charity. So Pioneer Math is one of them. The one that who set it up, she's only 17 years old. She's a local math girl. And she's just like, well, I really want to do math, but I don't know what is out there. So that is why she's setting it up. That set up like 4 or 5 years ago. So when she come to me, and then we were like, oh, what can we do with each other and help the community a little bit better? So for the last 2 years, we set up something called Discovery Data Program. So we are selected and 12 different local students. We have a workshop every single Saturday in August time to teach them how to use like Python or Tableau and things like that. Is before we start the course, we will talk to the student and ask them like, what is your interest? What kind of thing that you want? So from using data from like Taylor Swift song or things like that to make them more interested, but through their interest to learn about math, and also math is not boring, that kind of thing. So it's one of the things that I'm using my company to do. So that is one. The other thing that I really want to show you about is, and also I hope if you can help us, that would be great. So one of my charity work that I'm doing is I'm an Age UK Wentworth trustee. The reason why I was being their trustee is because they understand that I come from a data science background. As a charity, they would like to be more data driven, but the thing is they don't know how to do it. So that is the reason why I was being on board and being asked to be part of it. And then, so there's a few really big questions for them. So one, they want to find out how many cancer patients, dementia patients, and also violence against old people in the area that they're looking at. You will think that's easy, just number of patients or people. Is it really that hard to find? But the thing is, it is. So at the moment, the question is, we got 3 different programs. So I call it cancer program, dementia, and violence against old people. So for the cancer project, in a minute, I will tell you a little bit more. But the other 2, we're able to find a really high level data, but not really insightful. So from my calling now for using this forum is, if you guys know anyone or anything can help us, just let us know. Let's see whether what we can do together. But from cancer project, so when I call out, I put a post calling out is, well, Age UK would like to do a cancer project about using the data to see whether how can we help the demographic and how to using those information to help Wentworth area to plan better and resource and funding and things like that. So after the calling, I got a volunteer team. And they are all come from different backgrounds. So Claudia, for example, she's an NHS nurse, really want to transition from a nursing background to a data science. So that is why this project for her is really good, because she is come from that kind of background, but from a clinical background, not a data background. So I got Owen here that he's a PhD student with a math and stat background, but haven't really got real work experience yet. So that is why he want to use this experience to do more work. And then Sandra is a data analyst from a retail background, but never really worked in healthcare. And that is something we need to talk to her because she
30 seconds, 30 seconds.
Help. So basically that, and then I'm using my network with IQVIA. So IQVIA is an organization that was selling and doing data analytics with pharmaceutical company NHS. So basically what I'm trying to say is I'm using my network and my company to see whether I can link different people together to do something good to the world. And that is what I'm doing right now. If you want to talk a little bit more, I know I only got 5 minutes. If you want to talk anything more, please contact me directly. But I just want to tell you that we can do something together using company as well. Thank you.
Fantastic. Thank you very much, Carrie. That's a lovely start. So if we can all sort of send up comments, well done for kicking us off, and what a lovely way also to inspire the rest of the audience. Has anybody got any immediate questions? Do put your hand up if you would like to ask Carrie anything. I'll just give a quick question then, Carrie.
Yeah.
No, Sheba's got a question.
Yeah.
Sheba, you can unmute yourself. Yeah. No. Yeah.
I just want to know if there's a way we could stay in touch just in case anyone's interested in, say, professional opportunities and maybe internships or just collaborations on research and operations research.
Definitely. Ruth?
Yes, if you put your if people who are happy to be contacted put their details in the chat, and then you can follow up.
Yep.
Excellent. Just the question I was going to ask Carrie is how did Age UK Wandsworth find you?
I kind of find them because I live in Wandsworth, so I'm like, It's like I thought I come from NHS background. I know the data. If there is anything that you want us to do, we can do it together. And then they're like, yes, please, because data driven become more important in the world. If there is anything that we can help, that would be great. So that is how we started. And I also helped them to write a proposal to one of the university to do an Alzheimer's and study as well. So being a trustee in charity work, I think is not just about you can use your skill as well, even though people doesn't see it.
That's great. Thank you very much again. Let's move on then to Xiaochen. So Xiaochen, do you want to get your slides up?
Yeah. Is everything okay? Yeah.
That looks good. So you're ready to go?
Yes.
If you could, okay, off you go now then. Oh no, I haven't introduced you. I beg your pardon. I'm sorry, I forgot my bit. So Xiaochen is a postdoc research assistant at the University of Bath. She's probably going to tell you some of this anyway. What she's currently doing is researching material handling problems in smart warehousing. But actually, she started doing OR with a master's degree at Durham University, and then I think this is the talk that she's going to give now comes out of the topic from her PhD. But Xiaochen is on the WORAN event subcommittee and really just got in touch to offer. And anybody is welcome to do that. There's another plug. But I was really grateful that Xiaochen did because she's a great part of the subcommittee. So Xiaochen, off you go.
Thank you, Ruth. Good afternoon, everyone. I'm Xiaochen. I'm now working as a postdoc research associate at the University of Bath. And it's my truly honor to have this opportunity to share my research with you all. This piece is from my PhD. So I would like to introduce our quickest evacuation location problems in the humanitarian operations context for the purpose of disaster relief. It is a joint work with the Professor Antonino from the University of Leeds and Dr. Diego from the University of Sheffield. So disasters are serious disruptions to the functioning of a community that exceeds its capacity to cope using its resources. Disasters, can be caused by the natural hazards such as earthquake and flooding, as well as the man-made hazards like war or other technological hazards. They all result in loss of life, infrastructure damage, and economic setbacks. Due to many reasons, the number of disasters has increased a lot during the past 20 years, which brings in the importance of the humanitarian operations for disaster relief. Therefore, we are trying to find the solution for the problems. Well, after a disaster, how can we efficiently locate the shelters, and how can we efficiently determine the quickest routes for affected individuals to get to the activated shelters? Therefore, we introduced our quickest evacuation location problems, which combine the quickest flow problems as well as the shelter location problems in order to find the optimal locations of shelters and the optimal allocation of flows to the shelters, such that the make span is minimized. And the make span here is the total evacuation time. The aim of our problem is to increase the efficiency of humanitarian operations and to enhance the evacuation network design and planning. So we developed a multiple objective mixed integer programming formulation with with 3 objective functions. First is to minimize the make span, which is the total evacuation time. The second is to minimize the budget used for activating the shelters and to run the shelter. And the third objective function is to minimize the maximum utilization level in shelters in order to achieve a balanced load in order to reduce the risks. So we have a set of constraints, the basic network flow and facility location constraints, and some problem specific constraints, which I will not go into the details of it. So in order to obtain the solutions without compromising too much the optimality, so we use a mass heuristic approach. So we embedded the heuristics process into an exact method, which is called the algorithm R, and we test it in 6 various sizes of networks with 5 different demand sets for each network in order to obtain the Pareto optimal solutions. And from the results, we can see a very clear trade-offs between the 3 objective functions, the make span, the budget, and the maximum utilization rate. And this raised a lot of very important managerial aspects. So we can help the decision makers to make the most appropriate decisions based on the amount of resources they have. So for example, they may only have a limited budget, or they have some requirements of the maximum utilization rate. So by considering the Pareto optimal solutions gotten from our problems, they can make good decisions based on the resources. And our problems can save the make span in order for a quicker rescue and to reduce the human suffering. And we help to save the cost for the organization so that they can have more money to do more things. And also by minimizing the maximum load for each shelter, we can achieve a balanced load. And in this case, we'll reduce the risks. And yeah, finally, I would like to finish my talk using the vision of the United Nations Office for Disaster Risk Reduction. So we can and we have to do more to create a world where disaster risks no longer threaten the well-being of people and the future of the planet. And thank you very much. And that's all my presentation.
I nearly forgot to unmute myself. Thank you very much, Xiaochen. Congratulations. 15 seconds left. You could have spent another 15 seconds inspiring us, but that was really, again, it's a wonderful piece of work. Does anybody have any immediate questions for Xiaochen? Is there anybody else here who's working on humanitarian disaster relief? Sheba, Sheba, go ahead.
Hi, I wanted to know what was the rationale behind selecting the method? So you selected math heuristics and then augmecon. So how did you choose which would be the right method?
Oh, yes. So first, because our problem is a multiple objective optimization problem. So basically, if you want to do find the optimal solution, Pareto optimal solutions for this type of problems, you have a lot of specific solution method. But in this case, because if you use an exact method, you will need a lot of quite long computational time. In this case, in the context of disaster relief, you don't have enough time for this. But on the other hand, if you only use heuristic, you may not get as good as solutions as the exact method will obtain. So in this case, we decide to combine both of it. So take both advantage of that. We can get a really high quality solutions, as well as we can reduce a large amount of computational time.
Great. That's really helpful. Thank you very much. Thanks for the question, Shiva. And congratulations again, Xiaochen, both on the talk and on the work. I think the work's probably more important than the talk, but both of them. So thank you.
Thank you very much.
And our next speaker is Ruth Kelly, who I've known for a while. Ruth is Chief Analyst at the National Audit Office. She did quite a lot of things before she got there. I think originally an economist, but there's a lot of analytics in certain sorts of economics, and looking at value for money, policy evaluation, investment decisions, and so on. So very wide experience. Like Carrie, Ruth has to, I think Carrie might have already had to leave, and Ruth will have to leave before the end of this. But in the meantime, it looks like you're pretty much ready to go, Ruth. So is that okay if I set the thing going?
Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah, right. Great. Thank you. Off you go.
All right. Well, thank you very much, and thanks for inviting me here today. So as Ruth said, I'm Chief Analyst at the National Audit Office. We look at the financial accounts of a large number of public service bodies, so about 400 of them, and we also do value for money work. And my team, the Central Analysis Team, supports those audit teams in the methods and the analysis that they use, and that's all the way from kind of more qualitative methods to how we use data analytics and audit. But the thing I wanted to focus on today, just to give you a bit of a sense of the breadth of things that you can do in operations research, is on our model assurance work. So my team audits the most complex and high-risk models that underpin estimates in financial accounts. So for example, that could be the expected credit loss models that support the COVID guarantee scheme, or looking at the valuation of the student loan portfolio, and so on. And we use a very established framework for doing that work. I've put it up on the screen here. It's publicly available, but essentially it's a structured approach to review models, and we look at where there are areas of risk in various domains, the controls, the selection of methods, how those methods are applied, how uncertainty is handled, and we do that to support a proportionate and a risk-based quality assurance of those models. And the tools we use vary from code review to building our own model reproductions, or building challenger models, which look at different ways to achieve the same outcome. But what I wanted to talk to you about today was a particular piece of work we've done recently on the long-term workforce plan, which the NHS published last year. So this was a really impressive achievement. It was the first time that the NHS brought together its planning for future health services with the workforce that was needed to deliver it. And we looked at that model, we assessed it, and we looked at ways in which it could be improved, because part of the intention was for this model to be, for the modeling work to be redone at regular intervals, and for the workforce plan to be published every now and then, every 2 years or so. So we wanted to look at ways of improving it. So the model itself, just to give you a quick overview, it's a modeling pipeline. So it's a series of models with distinct elements along a pipeline, has a number of input models, which went into a core Python model, which effectively did the shortfall analysis. So it looked at the gaps between workforce supply and workforce demand under various scenarios. There was then further Excel-based models, which looked at how international recruitment and training of new doctors could be used to fill those gaps. And then finally, there was a further selection of models, which then constructed the ranges that were published. And so maybe just a few things to pull out, which I think are quite relevant for others in the modeling community. The first thing is that design matters for quality. So what we found was that this power plan wasn't very well integrated. So it was platformed in a range of different modeling environments. Data was moved manually between different parts of the power plan, and that increases the risk of errors and of inconsistent assumptions. So actually building in quality at the point of thinking about how you design your model is really important. The second thing we took away is how important documentation is for applicability. And so in that, in the triangulation bit of the model, which is where there were sort of manual adjustments of training places and the numbers of people recruited internationally through a series of an iterative process, which included policy judgments and also expert views. The problem with that is that they weren't documented. And so it wasn't possible for us to replicate that. And it also means that for analysts who might be repeating that analysis in future, that becomes quite difficult. Thirdly, we looked at how well they understood uncertainty. So modeling ultimately is never going to be right. It's just a tool for exploring, beginning a conversation in an evidence-based and transparent way, and for testing out the implications of different scenarios. And so it's important that both the modeling supports that, it's easy to run those scenarios, and secondly, that that's communicated. And what we found was that there was a fairly limited range of uncertainty that was communicated. So it's really important to communicate outputs for a wide range of plausible outputs. And finally, related to that, external challenge and scrutiny. So this is a highly uncertain environment. There are no right answers. Lots of things could change. And so testing the robustness of your assumptions with external stakeholders and really stress testing them is so important for making sure that you have a clear view of what's going to happen. So those are some of the takeaways. If you want to, you can read our report. We published that, and so that's all there.
Brilliant. Just a couple of seconds sneakily over there, Ruth, but that is great. That's really interesting. Thank you. Thank you very much. Do you want to just stop sharing and then we can see? So applause from me because I've got my mic on, but I thought that was great. Any questions for Ruth?
There's a question in the chat, I think.
The chat, or just I make the question. So yeah. Basically, like this is very interesting. Kind of like so what you have presented is the model that you have like long term for kind of understanding what are the needs of NHS system. Kind of like, I guess, kind of like when you hire doctors, there is sometimes there is also a training, so you need to take into account that training that is needed to kind of like get them integrated in certain department or something. And I wonder how often this training happens. Is it individual for each person? Is there kind of like an associated cost of hiring people and recruiting? Do you do it in batches? Or do you do it in, whenever someone is needed?
Well, that's the complexity with workforce modeling in healthcare because of the very long time horizons for training. So your average consultant, from the point at which they join medical school until when they become a fully qualified consultant, it's 13 to 15 years. And it's kind of 10 to 11 years for a GP. So you're looking at these very long time horizons. You're having to make decisions and train medics for a future in 15 years' time when you're not sure how healthcare is going to be delivered, what sort of technological improvements they might be, and what part of the system they might be needed in. And so it's very challenging. And that's the complexity, and where you really need to look at a broad range of outcomes and say, what do you need to believe to be in this particular view of the world? And how can we both monitor how our assumptions are playing out in reality and also be resilient to change and be able to flex if necessary.
Thank you.
Thanks very much, Ruth. Well, that was great. Thank you. And time, I think, to move on and move on to Shraddha. So Shraddha, I met Shraddha at the last year's OR Society conference, where we had a social event for networking with women in OR and analytics. And Shraddha is now at the University of Sheffield doing her PhD there, and has experience in applying optimization models for solving problems in capacity planning, network design, and here we have the healthcare economics side of things. So another health type of application, but something completely different, really, from the area that Ruth was looking at. So Shraddha, you ready to go?
Yes.
Okay,
I'll clarify. I am a PhD student. I'm wrapping up my PhD studentship in University of Strathclyde. I'm a research associate in University of Sheffield, but it's
Thank you. Thank you very much. You can't get the people to introduce things these days. The quality is poor. I've got, in case people have been wondering, I occasionally shout out, I've been asked to give warnings to certain people and not other people. So we have a 30-second warning coming up for Shraddha. So if you hear me shouting 30 seconds, you'll know why I'm so rudely interrupting her. But Shraddha, when you're ready, take it away.
Yeah, okay. Thank you so much. So hello everyone. I am Shraddha Ghatkar. I work as a research associate, as I mentioned before, at University of Sheffield. Today I'm going to talk about my work with my colleagues in the research project called CIPHER. CIPHER is system science in public health and health economics research. It has 8 work strands that focus on different aspects of the project. My work strand particularly focuses on economic models and decision support tool for our policymakers. It is a very big research project and has many outcomes. But today I'll focus to give you all an overview of our structured decision-making approach to improve health and reduce health inequalities. Yeah. So one of the motivation of this project is this graph. It gives life expectancy and healthy life expectancy of males in Scotland across 10 different deciles based on economically most deprived and least deprived people. This can be fairly generalized to females and also the entire population in the UK to realize the need to address the inequalities in the population and relation of health of population on their economic background. Now, a traditional approach would be to first make focus groups of policymakers, subject matter experts, then design different interventions that can help the people belonging to most deprived areas. One can use different tools like, say, multi-criteria decision analysis that can identify these most effective interventions. However, when we asked questions, have we considered all the socioeconomic factors? Have we identified the most economic factors of these? Or can we give trade-offs to our decision makers to support them? So clearly the answer was we needed to do more. That's the time we tried to focus more on the phase of designing the interventions. With regard to the requirements of considering multiple criteria and offering trade-offs to our policymakers, multi-objective optimization was an option. Unlike MCDA, it can generate new alternative solutions. But then the problem was we needed a structuring method to find significant objectives and decision variables. And so have now designed, and now we propose our mixed method approach, where we have a systems map to understand the complex relationships in the system. This has been developed by our subject matter experts, and multi-objective optimization framework that models the objectives and offers solutions that are most effective. It also is giving trade-off solutions to the decision makers. Now this is the systems map. It has different nodes, as you can see. Nodes for health indicators, like life expectancy, premature mortality, and economic indicators like employment rate, involuntary exclusion due to ill health, and skills and qualifications, and so on. Now, after the systems map, we wanted to identify which decision variables are making the most impact. And so with our policy partners, we had some workshops. We identified these 6 nodes, and now we call them as decision variables to achieve our objectives, like maximizing the average life expectancy, minimizing inequality in the average life expectancy, and also minimizing the intervention cost for achieving this. At this point of time, now we would like to know how much each node needs to be impulsed or shocked to achieve the goals that we have set.
30 seconds.
Along with the systems map now and the multi-objective optimization framework, you can see we have an evaluation model as well that assists our solution. It is a time series model that forecasts over a given time horizon. There were a few iterations and updates across each phase of the process, and we had discussion with our policy partners regarding this. We are now at a place to use the decision support tool to publish our key findings for 2 of our use cases. That's it for today. If you would like to discuss this further, also would like to see the key findings, please feel free to contact me with the QR code and the email. Thank you so much.
Brilliant. Thank you very much, Shraddha. And there was clearly a very socially oriented theme on this. It's, I think almost everything that we've heard has had some sort of social background so far. But we have a question from Sheba.
Hi, I've heard of multi-criteria decision making, but if you would just explain it in a few sentences, that would be nice. And again, the same question that I asked previously, what was the rationale behind selecting the method?
Can I just start, rather than asking Shraddha to explain, and unless you can do it in 10 seconds, Shraddha, it's I think it's probably a bit much for a lightning talk. Do you want to go in 10 seconds or 15 seconds? And
my answer?
Yeah.
So that's difficult. But MCDA is for a pre-identified set of alternatives, whereas in multi-objective, you tend to find more alternatives. And that was the purpose, as I explained in the talk, that we wanted to identify more solutions. I hope that was 10 seconds.
Well, no, I was thinking more of being asked to explain what MCDA, multi-criteria decision analysis, is.
Yeah.
Thank
you.
Sorry, Sheba. But I'm sure that you can follow this up outside, perhaps with Shraddha. And are you saying just why you chose multi-objective optimization is because it was the thing that worked for what you were trying to achieve?
Yeah, I mean MCDA is already in use for health and social sciences projects, and our aim was to use something that brings out the different trade-offs of more alternatives. So eliciting more alternatives was a purpose. So we can see the pattern in how these decision variables react, how the system reacts to the changes in the decision variables.
So you're finding a method that allows you to do that.
Yes.
Yeah. Brilliant. Thank you very much. And thank you again for the talk. Well done. And now our penultimate speaker, we come to Jasbir, who is, and I first met Jasbir actually during lockdown on one of these, when we started these online sessions during lockdown, or certainly during the time of COVID. And I think that's where our paths first crossed, when Jasbir was working at Transport for London, and before that she'd also worked at the Department for Work and Pensions, and she's now at the Bank of England. and is actually going to speak without slides, which is a very courageous thing to do, Jasbir. But I have really looking forward to knowing how it's done. But I think, is it okay if we pin you so that we can actually see you as the main speaker? Is that okay, Karen, if we can pin Jasbir? Is Karen still there? Thank you. Is she pinned? Not pinned. Well, the pinning's not working on my screen, but is she okay?
She's pinned. Yeah.
Right. Okay. I thought we might see just Jasbir. Ah, she's not spotlighted. That's why she. Right. Okay. So I was thinking spotlighting. The technology clearly is not quite up my street. Jasbir, you're in my top left-hand corner anyway. I'm sure you're going to be the only person talking once I stopped. So would you like to get going? I'll get started.
So sure. Hi everyone. So I'd like to start by saying thanks to Ruth and the OR Society for inviting me to this event. I'm really happy to be sharing the stage with Xiaochen, Shraddha, Dilek, Carrie and Ruth. So my name is Jasbir Ali. I'm a data scientist. I'm currently working at the Bank of England. As Ruth mentioned before, I've held analyst positions at Transport for London and the Department for Work and Pensions. So I joined the bank about 18 months ago in international banking supervision. I stayed in that role for about a year, but then I decided to try out a non-technical position when an interesting secondment opportunity came up at the bank. So for the last 9 months, I've been working on the bank's DNA strategy. So the main things that I've been doing is like developing strategic goals and looking at like how we'll measure the benefits. So things like productivity, efficiency. So like my background is that I've kind of been in data science and analytical roles for well over 10 years. And this is the first time I've tried out a non-technical role. So I'll openly admit it was a bit of a shock to start with. I wasn't prepared for how many papers, slides, emails I had to commit to reading at speed and in detail, so that I could make sense of the sort of ideas that were floating around in senior people's heads. So I spent a lot of my time in meetings with like very senior people at the bank. This is also the first time I've been in a role where I'm working directly to someone as senior as the Chief Data Officer. For me, that has actually been quite daunting. There were times in the early days where I felt like a complete imposter. The role is quite different. It's a step out of my comfort zone, but it's been really challenging and rewarding. I'm definitely learning a lot as well. So I've had like 3 key reflections so far, which I'll talk through in a minute, but I just wanted to start by saying that I would encourage those in technical roles to definitely consider doing a non-technical job, even if it is just for a short period of time in your career. So something like policy related or strategic with a data focus would allow you to bring important and sometimes missing knowledge to discussions and help shape change in your business. Also doing a non-technical role forces you to think in a very different way, more bigger picture, long term, and like business focused. So anyway, I'll sort of go through my kind of 3 key reflections. So the first one is embrace stepping away from the detail. So everyone will be able to relate to what I'm saying now. When you're in an analytical role, the detail and being able to explain that to others simply is such a critical part of the role. But when you're in a non-technical role, it's important to remember that you're never going to know all the detail, but you should make sure that you know the people who know the detail, because you'll want to bring them into discussions when needed. So that leads me on neatly to the next point. So number 2 is around investing your time to create a knowledgeable and trusted network. So you should definitely take time to speak to people at all levels in your organization and branch outside of your usual networks. It's really important to try and understand all the jigsaw pieces of the puzzle that is your organization. And sometimes you can't always, I don't think that you can always get that from attending company-wide talks or through presentations. I've found that I've learned more about the day-to-day workings of the bank in quite a short period of time through things like coffees and informal chats with colleagues. And then finally, my third point is ask yourself, what do I think needs to change in the business? So again, others will be able to relate to this. When you've held like a technical role, such as data scientist before, you're essentially part of an elite group who've had the chance to engage with your company's systems and technology, and essentially you know how to get DNA done in the business. So when you transition to a non-technical role, just remember that no one knows better than you what all the intricate problems are, like with how data analytics works in your organization, maybe how like the IT sometimes doesn't allow you to produce the best outputs in an efficient way. So my advice would be, like, when you're given the platform, be bold with the suggestions that you put forward, and point to evidence of where you've seen your ideas work before, because this does give you credibility. So an example is, the bank is currently looking at a cloud migration, and I've kind of been through a similar experience at TfL, so I have to find myself sitting in meetings and saying, oh, here's the sort of stuff that we did at TfL. And I think that's, been quite valuable. So that brings me to the end. I hope you've enjoyed my reflections, and thanks for listening.
Sorry, I just realised I was on mute. You had an extra 5 seconds as a result of me being on mute and telling you very firmly that time was up.
All right, okay.
So but muted. But yes, that was great. Thank you so much. 5 minutes and 5 seconds of really interesting. I think it's very interesting stepping into a non-technical role. I don't know, has anybody got any questions for Jasbir? Because I would say, what is it? You can get imposter syndrome going both ways. So when you move into a non-technical role, you can also feel that you don't really know what non-technical roles should be like. So you may feel imposter syndrome there, but also as part of that is understanding what is it that you're bringing just because you come from a data science background. Do you think you bring anything to the non-technical role from your methodological approach?
Yeah, definitely. So I think sometimes when I've been in meetings, I think in terms of like trying to break down difficult concepts into like, little chunks, I think, most data scientists will probably be able to do that because they think quite, in a methodical way. So like, say, for example, there are people where I work in the business who, haven't had the career of being a data scientist, doing a super technical role, but then are kind of like working in a kind of data role, but they've got like really great soft skills. They've got all the things that senior people bring to a role. But sometimes, they do need a little bit of support with okay, that's that kind of technical thing over here that I don't really understand. Can you explain it to me like really simply in lay terms? And so you definitely, I think I bring that to the role quite well. But I think in terms of like the imposter side of it, it's more like thinking, oh my God, I don't know how the entire business functions. The reality is that nobody knows that. But when you first step in, you think to yourself, oh my gosh, I really don't know anything because I've just worked in this tiny subset of the business.
Great. Well, thank you very much again. That's it. I think it's always interesting for people who work in analytics to actually see it from the other side. So thank you. That's great. And now we come to our final talk of the afternoon, which is Professor Dilek Unkel, who actually is the only person who I feel I haven't met so much, whether online or physically. And Dilek, we've got your presenter view. We've got your words as well, I think.
Shouldn't be.
Let's have a look. What we meant to be seeing?
Shouldn't be.
Yep, that's the one. That's the one. Yeah.
Excellent.
Right.
Excellent. Sorry, Ruth, we haven't been able to meet because I have a conflicting conference whenever there are conferences.
But it's great though that basically you got in touch with Women in OR Analytics anyway for other purposes, and then we followed up. So your PhD came from the University of Minnesota, and you've been visiting Oxford, Bath, and UCL, but your present home is Northumbria University and Newcastle Business School. I suppose you've got it up there. So thank you very much for giving us this talk. Off you go when you're ready. You ready? Yeah.
I am. Thank you very much, Ruth. Hello, everybody. I'm Dilek. I'm head of the analytics subject group at the Newcastle Business School. I just wanted to give you a little taster of my research today. My research focus, being a decision scientist, is on strengthening human systems integration, basically. And I try to look at the business context, but in addition to contexts like health, security, migration issues as well. And I try to do that through a transdisciplinary focus. And I work on trying to construct better informed forecasts, refined conversion of forecasts and risks into decisions, and effective communication of uncertainty forecasts and risks in general. The idea is to harness the relative strengths of human judgment and systems in predictive analytics, basically. My research agenda is walk through these topics, basically, just to give you a little taster again. We develop all these models, very complicated models that make great forecasts. But then when individuals and forecasters look at these models, they don't just take the forecast from them, but they adjust them judgmentally. And they do this regardless of how good the model forecasts are. And they try to do that as a way of ownership, as a sense of ownership. They believe it enhances the forecast quality, though. They think about it as the only way they can include their experience and informational asymmetries and so on, and look at it as a way of controlling a forecast. But what happens is, well, sometimes these lead to great new final forecasts, but sometimes they lead to poor adjustments, poor forecasts. And that emanates from all kinds of things, like the different judgmental traps that happen, framing effects, heuristics, resistance to learn from past errors, obsession with quick forecasts, selective information use, disinformation. There's a whole host of factors that lead to those. And then, of course, there's strategic biases, motivational biases that lead to poor adjustments as well. Now, furthermore, if individuals believe that forecasts are coming from an expert rather than a model, whereas it is exactly the same forecast, but we just don't tell the individuals that, they tend to believe those forecasts that they think are coming more from experts as compared to those that they believe are coming from models. Now, that finding that we call algorithm avoidance, and others who have looked at this, gives a host of issues about the particular details, dynamics of what we need to do to support the human decision-making and the human judgment and the actual use and adjustments of these forecasts as well as their translation into decisions, of course. So overall, trust seems to be the most important attribute that sells a forecast. And we are quite fragile when it comes to trusting forecasts. So we've done lots of work with trust or mistrust in forecasts with business forecasters, and as well as in health and other settings as well. And we try to learn from the dynamics of why the forecasts are not as trusted when they're perceived to be coming from models, and why are experts trusted in some cases and not in others. One of those factors is the scenario. So I do a lot of work on scenario forecasting synergies as well to enhance the user's trust in the forecast. And we apply it to interesting things like intelligence analysis as well. But that's it in a nutshell. Happy to be in touch with everybody. Thank you.
Oh, well, thank you, Dilek. That was very quick. You got through a lot in with nearly half a minute to spare. But that was really, really interesting as well. I think anybody who's used forecasts knows that the temptation to add your human judgment and tweak is enormous. Any direct questions for Dilek from anyone? If nobody else has a question, I will ask Dilek. I say that we've got about 3 minutes left, so very quickly, do you get a good response from decision makers when you tell them about this?
Well, it depends. At the very top, if they are the strategic decision makers, they like to look at forecasts. Well, they call their targets forecasts sometimes as well. So that's whole thing about getting their expectations from the people who actually try to come up with forecasts with a different set of goals from their own goals at the strategy level. Could be a bit interesting at times, but it's a learning experience. They like the feedback though, and they are typically surprised by it because of all these biases like the desirability bias, the optimism bias, etc., that we know a lot of decision makers are susceptible to. It becomes an interesting communication, let's put it that way.
Thank you very much. Right, well, I just need to say there's been some very nice comments in the chat about all of our speakers. I'd like to thank each one of our speakers, those who've had to go early and those who've stayed right through to the end. As I said at the start, it's not an easy thing to compress some work into 5 minutes. And I think they've all done a fantastic job of that. So thank you all very much. Thank you to the audience. I know a lot of people have had to leave early, but thanks to those who've stayed. So we've heard just a bit of a reminder. We've heard about Carrie's charitable works with Age Concern in Age UK in Wandsworth. We've heard about Xiao Chen's work on evacuation and getting the fastest evacuation routes, about the modelling review, the importance of design, documentation, recognising the need for communicating uncertainty and being able to challenge models in the health service, or the example of the health service from Ruth. We've heard about the quite shocking health inequalities in Scotland and ways of using multi-objective optimization to address those. We've heard about what it's like the other side of the advisor's role, the analyst's role from Jasbir in the Bank of England, and finally from Dilek how we can't trust our own judgment really, and how we are inclined to avoid what the model is telling us and just go our own way if we possibly can. But thank you all very much. Thank you to the audience. Thanks for your comments. Do fill in the feedback form. It's further up in the chat. If you haven't yet got it, download it and fill it in because it's really helpful for all of us. And hopefully if there's any questions in the chat, I'll pick them up outside. And in the meantime, have a wonderful rest of the day, rest of the week, and hopefully see you at one of the 2 June events. Thank you, and thanks, Karen, for facilitating it all.
Thank you, Karen.
Bye.
Thank you.
Thank you. Bye-bye.
Thank you. Bye.